Hello, my name is Gerson Torres, and today I'm going to be presenting to you what I was assigned, which was the 1980s, but specifically the arts and culture, and it's by me, Gerson Torres. Hope you enjoy, Mr. Raby. Hope this is a fun and educating presentation. So, the summary of the 80s. The 80s is a time period where Americans were at peace. The Cold War was ended. The Berlin Wall fell, and it was a time period where the youth was not focused on politics nor focused on going into the military right away, but they were specifically focused, or their minds were trending on movies, arts, and the culture within the 80s. So, musical trends. So, one of the most popular trend of style that many young adults followed was music. Music in the 80s were dominated by pop, rock, and funk, or you can even say roll. Within the 80s, they played something called a click track. There were many bands that came together that played live music, but a lot of singles that came out too, like Prince, Madonna, Michael Jackson, even more. Drummers played a huge role within the music or the type of style they played. Rock, roll, pop, you need some type of beat to go to that. The quality of sound of music was okay, but kids or the youth really went to concert to experience the actual experience. So music was specifically dominated, or its foundation was MTV. So MTV was this revolutionary idea that allowed the music industry to expand into something bigger and better. This idea was to influence the world and the people in America that pop, rock, and roll or rock was going to take over this century. This vision was executed by not only bringing in new stars like Whitney Houston, Prince, Madonna, Michael Jackson, and even more. So MTV was both listening and watching. So it was both a trend listening and watching it because it's musical television, MTV. I started in the 80s, specifically started up 81, and in 1984, MTV had its music awards. So one particular artist that is known today and that is a huge celebrity is Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was known for his singing, but also known because of his dancing. Michael began to get the people's attention by the moonwalk and his performances to the gloves and to the jackets that he wore. Hashtag trends. The moonwalk was a huge thing that people tried to copy because it was a move never seen. The gloves was within his music videos. People started making these gloves because they saw it as a trend and were very cool. It was during the 80s that the Jackson 5 started to separate and performers started seeking their own venues. Michael Jackson decided to emerge with his bad boy personality and became widely popular. So, in his album called Bad is Billie Jean, which he won a Grammy for that. Can You Feel It? Rock It Right Now, and then Beat It. Then you have another iconic star, which is also started within the 80s. Actually, he started fresh within the 80s, and his name is Prince. Prince was also given the opportunity, just like Michael Jackson and MTV. But what made him different is he brought all the genres of music in all his songs and on the stage. Genres like funk, soul, rock, pop from all generations of musicians like today have been wanting to do, but they can't because Prince really delivered in that time period. So people that are jealous of him are like Pharrell Williams, D'Angelo, or Justin Timberlake try to, you can say, copy his sense of music, but honestly have gone nowhere with that. So songs that are very popular are called Sister, Dirty Mind, Where Were You Mine, and Head. So how did it affect culture? So MTV was the foundation so that Americans were able to watch and listen to many new pop stars. Stars like Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Madonna, Prince delivered and captured the American people of how they dressed, the way the music was played, and the trends that they created. So to summarize that up, MTV was the foundation. Prince and Michael were the ones that drove that sense of trend or that sense of music and television together. So another impacting part within the 80s was the movies. So the genres were you can say sporadic, or there was no specific genre that people went to, but one of the famous genres that was in this time period is sci-fi, horror, and adventure. So movies like The Karate Kid, Back to the Future, Return of the Jedi, Gremlins, and Ghostbusters. I'm going to focus on three. The other two are important, but I like these three specific movies. So Ghostbusters made 588 million, Gremlins made 153 million, and Back to the Future made 381.1 million. So Back to the Future created this whole new trend of within the sci-fi era. People were like, oh, like the Nikes. If you ever seen the Nikes within Back to the Future, that's one of the trends that was created. Ghostbusters. If you ever seen a Hollywood like a Halloween special within the 80s or just back in the days, you would see that kids dress like the four characters within Ghostbusters. Gremlins was a time period of kids wanting like pets, dogs, cats, things of that nature. And Gremlins was showing that a pet that was given to a kid at a Chinese store or a Chinese place, and you're not allowed to feed at 12 o'clock, and something bad happened. The Karate Kid set a trend of people wanting to learn how to do karate or defend themselves from bullying, something in that nature. And then Return of the Jedi, another sci-fi movie, really good movie, actually one of the biggest movies, and basically created the cinematic universe there. So another good idea or another big complex brand was major books within the 80s. So one of the most famous books is Stephen King's The Talisman. So The Talisman was an adventure of a 12-year-old boy named Jack Sawyer. And he basically is an adolescent hero who goes to New Hampshire to save his mom from cancer by finding a crystal called the Talisman. Stephen King's It is about kids trying to defeat this clown that can become different things of their fear, and they only do that to not fear him. The Full Circle is a young woman who's traumatized by rape at an early age, and she slowly learns how to trust and love again, and she doesn't want to repeat her mother's mistakes. That's why it's called Full Circle. Then you have the Butter Book, Dr. Seuss. There is a conflict between the Yolks and the Zooks over how to butter bread. As you can see, the flags. So your question is how did the books affect that society within that time period? Well, as you can see, there's adventure, there's conflict, there's heroism, and then there's struggle. So within that, it expresses the type of time period that they were in because it shows the idea of overcoming or an obstacle in general. So major arts. So major arts within the 80s are looked as graffiti, architecture, then you have paintings, and then what was really funny for me when I was thinking about the 80s is like kid type of art, but it was actually oil paintings that were really famous because of higher class. But Keith Haring was an artist within the 80s, famous for his graffiti in the subway. This art that he made, this was like some type of architecture, but this was also a painting. But this sold in New York for a lot of money, specifically $400,000 to $600,000. Great artist. He did a lot of things within the community, but his art was just really amazing. Then you have Jean-Michel Basquiat, was a young artist who symbolized the raw emotional intensity for his bravery and his new style. People didn't think he was going to do well because of this type of art, but he actually did really well because his art sold for a lot of money and because it was an oil painting. So to answer the question of, okay, so how does the art, how does the movies, how does the music affect the culture? Well, it affects it because of the foundation that it grew on, like MTV, Michael Jackson. Then you have the movies, the sci-fi, the cinematic era that occurred. Then you have the books. They all created a foundation for kids to become kids. Because if we look at the 70s or the 60s, that was the time period where Americans were fixed on politics, and within the 80s, they really focused on to become a kid, to basically experience the youth. So thank you guys for listening to my presentation. Mr. Raby, I hope this helped. It was a lot of information, and I hope you have a great day.